Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Tuesday. I hope it finds you well out there, kind of cooling back down. Crazy weather. I mean, really, it's beautiful. I mean, it's going to be, mid-80s in mid-May in the Valley of the Sun? Yeah, we'll take that all day. How about those D-backs? Took care of the Giants last night. Rockies, we want to talk about the Rockies. We'll just leave that alone. They're not good. Let's see, that's weather, that's sports. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. That is to get your gold and silver, to get involved with KXXT. By the way, really quickly, hurry. You want to be sooner. You don't want to be later. Last week was a record for KXXT as far as people signing in to become minors. This is what's going to drive the price. Yesterday, to start the week, 58% higher than last week's sign-up. So things are moving even faster than they had thought. By the way, on Thursday, Bobby Gray will be joining the Patriot Radio News Hour this Thursday. We will have the phone lines and the text line open for everybody. We were trying to do commercial free, but we got some limitations in Phoenix, so we'll see. We may still do commercial free, and then for Phoenix, either you guys can jump in on 1360 KXXT.com, because we're not on the same time. So Phoenix right now, half the year, get the show an hour late. So it's actually a little after 8 o'clock right now in the Valley of the Sun, as we're broadcasting live at 9 o'clock in Colorado. But Bobby Gray will be with us. It will be insanity. I'm just telling you. Wait till you hear, what Jason and I talk about. We don't do it justice. I highly, highly recommend to anybody that's, hey, I'm going to sign up, do it today before. Because I'll say I would anticipate it'd be very difficult getting lines in to sign up after Bobby's done. So get it done. An update. I did get some clarity here. Remember, 9,000's the maximum on the KXXT. If you sign up for less than that, you have 30 days to change your mind. In other words, let's just say you signed up for a 3-pack because you wanted to test it out. You didn't know. And then you hear Bobby, you get all excited. You want to make that 3-pack a 9-pack. You've got 30 days to get up to that level. So I wanted to throw that out there for everybody. But Bobby Gray will be joining us Thursday. We want to do commercial free. Phoenix can't do that, but a couple of things. You can always go to 1360 KHNC at 8 o'clock and listen there to the whole thing. I talked to Ramon. We'll have the podcast up, and it will be in its entirety. So you can always listen afterwards to everything that Bobby has to say. And again, this is something where, you know me, 22 years, I don't recommend hardly anything ever. I think this is life-changing. Obviously, it's investment, so there is risk, right? Disclosure here, right? I'm not a financial advisor in any of these things. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. But as you guys know, Jason and I, especially Jason did, I can't even tell you how much research. So much. Right? And trying to find something that we thought really fit with what we do. And we gave up. And then it kind of fell in our lap, right? It kind of fell in our lap with one of our existing clients, Jason, and here we are.
Yeah, I found myself in Fort Lupton and had some extra time on my hands. I wasn't running the radio station. And they have that saying, idle hands are the devil's plaything. So I, instead of getting into a lot of trouble, I dove into some research, Jack and I were looking at doing tax liens and things. I'm glad we didn't do that because we would have been buying tax liens in Florida where that's where that hurricane hit, and that would have been bad. So I'm glad we didn't really get deep into that. And I was looking at cryptos. I actually bought a membership into a group of guys, the decentralized masters, these guys that tell you how to get into liquidity pools and make the asset of cryptos work for you. Because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a digital coin like Bitcoin or there's tons of good ones. But make the asset work for you. I mean, it's like I got the asset.
Right. Anybody can go out and buy the coin.
As an example,
right.
If you have $1 million in Bitcoin, you could probably use that as equity in a loan. You could probably borrow against it, right? I'm thinking Bitcoin might be one of the only ones you can now do that with, right? With ETFs. There's not very many.
Maybe, right? Yeah.
But and then of course when it comes to these liquidity pools, you put like a stable coin versus a regular coin, and you try to make money on it. And unless I was going to make that my full-time job, cryptos, I didn't find anything that was working. So I just signed out because being a bigger part of the radio station was coming, the gold company, the radio shows. I was too busy. And then I got back to the radio station, right, Joe? And then here comes Mike Morris.
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Tuesday. Donald Trump and I don't know about all of them, but a bunch of the big shot billionaires are in Saudi Arabia. And I just saw Starlink. Yes, Elon's there, right? Yep, they just got approved in Saudi Arabia. Why not? Quick look in here at the markets. The Dow is down 170, which is nothing. I mean, come on. Huge move up to the upside yesterday, of course, on the China news. The S&P's higher by 30. The NASDAQ up 285. The 10-year note. We're lucky it's not worse. 4.48, so almost 4.5 on a 10-year note. We actually got a little weaker inflation data, kind of surprising a little bit today. Crude oil's up another $1 to $63. Gold is higher today. Had the sell-off yesterday. Right now, gold's up 32.46. Silver's up 33 cents. Right, here it goes. Right, I told you these industrial metals should benefit here. Bumping right up against $33 again. Platinum up 10, 988. Palladium is up 5. And, obviously everybody's still excited about the de-escalation for at least the 90 days between the U.S. and China, but we got the inflation data out today, and everybody was like, okay, this is probably going to be a higher number, right? We're kind of through the low inflation numbers of last year. ISM prices were the highest since June of 2022. ISM service, the highest of January 2023. Richmond Fed said prices were up. New York Fed said prices were up. Philadelphia Fed, prices were up. Kansas City Fed, prices were up. So you're like, okay, well, inflation's going to be up. Not really. The headline number on CPI today, up 0.2%. That is 1/10 better than expected. The headline number, 2.3% year over year, the lowest since February of 2021. So, Jason, definitely better than what all of the indications were coming into this. Shelter continuing to be a problem, up 0.3%. Now, that's crazy. I mean, that's the most expensive bill you have. Energy, they said, was up, and mostly due to the price of electricity. So, yes, gas got cheaper. It was electricity that did you in. Index for food down 0.1% in April. The price away from home, so restaurants, up 0.4%. By the way, eggs, the biggest drop at price food at home, down about 13% year over year. So, Jason, another one of these reports, there's two reports that kind of keep the Fed at bay, right, from cutting rates. The jobs reports and the inflation reports, right? Those are all the other reports probably say the Fed should be cutting rates. But, Jason, as long as these two reports stay where they are, it really is hard to see them doing it.
Yeah, well,
without an emergency, emergency in the bond market,
I mean, if the Fed is doing with the job they're tasked with, and they see that inflation is going to be sticky or get worse, then they're not supposed to drop the rates. In fact, the drop in the 1% they did was probably more than they really wanted to. It's really going to come down to inflation, and I was just talking to somebody yesterday about the tariffs. And I was like, well, the tariffs are a tax, and this guy's, kind of a pro-Trumper guy. And he's like, well, it's not a tax. This is going to help the country. And this and that. I was like, no, it's just going to, every company that it's, that has to be involved in the process of 10% more cost of everything is just going to make everything more cost 10% more. It literally is going to be a tax, because I use the example of Harley Davidson when the America put tariffs on all the Japanese motorcycles so that they could keep Harley Davidson competitive with all the Japanese motorcycles that were coming in that were super cheap. That was to save Harley Davidson. That's kind of what tariffs are supposed to be. But, Joe, we don't have these competing industries that are going to hugely benefit from these tariffs coming in, which means then what are the tariffs? The tariffs are a tax. Tax is just going to make the price of everything go up. And Joe, that just means that's an inflative situation. That's what we got headed our way. Everything's going to cost more. So what's the Fed going to do if the price of everything goes up? They're not supposed to lower the rates. And I remember a couple of years ago I told Joe, well, what if we just have these higher rates and then they just start printing? And Joe basically just said, no, that can't happen. You just can't do that. And I was like, well, but the inflation kind of messes everything up. And, Joe, that's kind of where we're sitting. Are we going to stay with these higher rates and start printing money? Is that going to be the play? They wouldn't have to lower rates at that point. But, I mean, the borrowing costs, right? How do you get around the borrowing costs? This is where I think the big banks are going to be allowed to print the money. This is a change that I think is coming to where the big banks can just start printing money and bringing in treasuries that nobody else in the world wants. And then the Fed will try to take on all the rest of it. And, then I guess the government can just borrow to oblivion then. I mean, that's what it looks like. Right. This looks like the stages of moving into a hyperinflative situation.
Well, and it's interesting because now I think, let's face it, and I said this a while ago, when it comes to these tariffs, there's only three countries that really matter: China, Mexico, and Canada. That's where the majority of our trade lies. And if China at least has cooled off here for the next 90 days, we get to focus now on spending. Where are we? How much of the big, beautiful bill can we afford? Now, the Treasury released its numbers for April. A $258 billion budget surplus for April. That is $49 billion higher than a year earlier. And it's funny because, remember, tax season got off to a really slow start. They were really worried about this. But where the big drive came was, Wall Street had a huge year last year. Up really big capital gains. Some of these billionaires decided, hey, you know what? I don't know if we're going to be able to get the tax break right there. That's the one debate, right? Trump wants the tax breaks for everybody. And then it's like, well, if push comes to shove, the billionaires don't get one. They sold stock. They took it. We did get the customs duties for April. Now, this was an April number. So this was, hey, the tariffs are pretty much in effect. Let me tell you what that got us. About $7 billion. So last year, the tariff number, the duty of goods, was about $9 billion. This year, $16 billion. So if you kind of did the math, that's like $84 billion. And obviously, you'll see that, 16 billion. They're like, oh my gosh, look at all that money. Well, it wasn't quite all that money, right? Because they had some the year, but we'll take it, right? There's no doubt we will take it. But where does that leave us now? Well, we have a deficit of over $1 trillion with the last 5 months of the year still to come. They're anticipating a number, obviously well north of $2 trillion, but they have to wait and see as to where this budget comes in, where the tax cuts come in, right? All of those things. What's in, what's out, how much can they cut from Medicare and Medicaid, right? What are they going to do, if anything, with Social Security? And you know what we're talking about. The Treasury's deficit standing at over $1 trillion. By the way, it's up 23%. It's up 23% from where the number was last year. So remember, we finished about a debt of $2 trillion. So 23%, okay, we're kind of, between 2.2 and $2.3 trillion plus. Well, we'll have to wait and see what comes in. Now, total receipts at a record $3.1 trillion. The outlays at a record, right? $4.15 billion. So, Jason, I think at least for right now, we are going to start looking at this. They have, Scott Bassett says, listen, we got about 6 weeks of money, right? Helped here by the revenue that came in. Right now, unadjusted, a 9% increase in fiscal outlays this year, higher spending on Medicare and the disabled, right? Now, again, remember, this is one of the programs they're trying to rein some spending in. And not only was it Medicare, but Medicaid. So Medicare up 16%. Medicaid up 6%. Of course, I told you that last year. The insurance companies got caught off guard with all that. Matter of fact, I don't know if you guys saw it. United Health pulled guidance. That's never a good thing. It's going to be very difficult to keep the spending in these programs under control, Jason. But this is where we're sitting financially right now. So it looks like, if I was to guess, $2.5 trillion probably is going to be the number this year. And then we'll be talking, how close to $3 trillion do we get next year?
Well, you get a little higher rate of inflation, and suddenly you can push that thing way above $3 trillion, Joe. The numbers you talk about, Joe, are very accurate as to what is being reported, but we don't know what kind of spending is going to need to be done. Just it seems like 3 months from now. Doesn't it seem like the spending is like you don't even know what it's going to be just a few months? The spending can get pushed higher and higher. I mean, look what they spent during COVID, Joe. We get one of those going on, and suddenly the debt can just spiral out of control. And that's what happened back in 2020. Printed up, we doubled the money supply. I mean, Joe, are we heading for another world? Are we going to be doubling the money supply every 4 years, every 3 years? And what's that going to do to that $3 trillion? Push it to 4, push it to 5? You know, how much is the interest on the debt going to be just next year, Joe? You know, how much is that going to be? And I think I think your numbers are probably going to be low just every single year. It's just we're already in fantasy land, but doesn't it seem, Joe, we're going to be even more in a fantasy land when it comes to the debt? We're talking numbers that the human mind can't even fathom. And so it's just a fantasy, and people. Joe, what do you say? How bad is this really going to get? The Fed has no play. The Treasury has no play. The world has no play, right? Where's the debt going to be? How many treasuries? Where are they going to hide all these treasuries, Joe? Where are they going to hide them, Joe?
That's the big question, right? The big question is, will we be able to continue to sell all that debt? 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason. Gold's up a 10 spot here. 32.50 as a little rebound from yesterday. You know, we had euphoria yesterday on the pause in the trade tensions with China, a lowering of the tariffs there. Trump right now in Saudi Arabia with a bunch of tech guys that are with him there. On top of that, inflation coming in a little tamer. We did get good news from the Treasury that tax receipts were up. They did note, however, the big increase coming from capital gains taxes, so the billionaires taking profits, maybe thinking the tax rate may go up for them next year. We'll have to wait and see. And then, of course, we did get $9 billion extra from the tariffs. So, you know, let's face it, $9 billion is still a lot of money. Just not a lot of money for our government, right? I mean, that's kind of the only issue. Now, treasuries. You know, I'll say this for Trump. He's probably doing a pretty good job as far as spending goes, even though I just told you we're spending more this year than last year. That's a fact. But you're like, how? Right? They're cutting. We had Doge, right? They're trying to fire people. How? Inflation's killing it. Inflation's killing it, which means interest rates on the debt are killing us. You look right now. I mean, just look. 10-year note, 4.49. The 10-year note's at 4.49. All the debt we have to sell today, you're talking about the debt that we have to roll over probably had an interest rate of less than 1%. If it was a 10-year note, right? Some of it had, right? If I was to guess, we're probably rolling over debt that had interest rates of sub 2%. And now they're 4.5%. Jason, these and you think about this, you guys know, look at what it did to mortgage payments. Right? When you could get a mortgage for 4%, $1 million house wasn't that bad. Right? The payment wasn't that bad. At 7%, you're like, oh, I can't afford that. Can't afford it. That's what's happening to the government. That's exactly what is happening with the federal government. And Jason, I think the yield curve, which continues to steepen, that is the big concern. Yes, can we be excited about the de-escalation with China? Yes. Yeah. Can we be excited about $9 billion extra in tariffs? Sure. Sure we can. And that, hey, tax receipts at least, hey, they were at a record too. You know, that's good. The problem is, despite those positives, the spending keeps getting worse. And as we know, listen, we know, Donald Trump's no dummy. They want to spend their way out of this, Jason. That is exactly what the plan is. This is why it's no accident everyone's talking about $4,000 gold now. I mean, every day. Another one just did it today. Now people are starting to write about path to $10,000 gold. Why? Because the money printing isn't going to stop. We've got a rebound here. You know how these dips are. They never last very long. Last day, $20 gold pieces, 34 and a quarter, 10 or more, 3,400 at 800-951-0592. Continue to add to the portfolio. Jason, I think this was probably as good of news as we could have expected today. And the end of it is, oh crap, Treasury yields went even higher. And what will Treasury yields look like when we find out how much more debt's going to be added after, well, we'll see. Hopefully sooner or later, Congress gets their act together. And the other thing is they're asking for a $4 trillion increase in the debt, which will take it to over $40 trillion. The problem is, Jason, we know we're already north of 37. We just don't know how far to 38. How long will that get us? I think we'll be lucky. We'll probably be talking debt ceiling. Let's just say they get more trillion. We'll probably be talking debt ceiling again towards the end of next year.
Well, I mean, we've been folding over the debt almost about 9 years, so it's a little quicker than 10 years. So two presidential terms, and we double over. So I forget what it was when Trump started. It was like 36 when he started. 30. So was it 37? So we could see at the end of 4 years, we could see another 18 trillion. I mean, does that think about that? At the end of Trump's term, we could be looking at $54 trillion. That's how fast it's going to move. Nobody says it, though, but if you look at it, from Bush took it over, it was 5, took it in 8 years, almost at 10. Obama took it at 10, almost took it to 20. And then look,
right.
Trump, Biden, 2 terms, got it to like 37. I mean, you need about 9 or 10 years to double it. So this is a game. It really is rigged. And your $40 trillion number, Joe, that might not be that's not going to be high enough. You watch this spending bill. You watch this spending that's getting ready to happen, and you watch how much printing is getting ready to happen, and what kind of emergency is the world going to cook up for us to be afraid of, so we don't look at it, Joe, because it's going to get these numbers are already off in outer space in some place that nobody understands. And now they're going to it's like their fantasy is going to have to concoct its own fantasy. I mean, that's where we're at. It's already a fantasy. It's been a fantasy for years. 40 trillion.
When you think about, say, the cryptos, we keep talking Texit, and people are like, well, why would that be popular? And Jason just answered the question. I mean, we're actually talking total nonsense here. Total nonsense. And when Jason starts talking about the end of Donald Trump, you know what? I'll say this. You know what my biggest fear is? Is what happens when Trump leaves. At least Trump's a badass. Whether you like the guy or not, at least he's a badass. What happens when the badass is gone? That probably scares me more than anything. Patriot Radio News Hour will be back after the break. 800-951-0592. I'm going to tell you again. $20 gold pieces, 1 through 9, 34 and a quarter, 10 or more, 3,400. Thursday, we're going to have Bobby Gray on this show. He's the founder of TextIt. We keep telling, he likes to call it, hey, if you missed Bitcoin, this is your second chance, right? This is that's what he says. But when you think about look at what gold's doing, right? It's incredible. It really is. It's incredible. And guess what everyone's saying? Oh yeah, it's got to go higher. Yeah. Well, why? Well, because as Jason said, we're talking nonsense, right? There's no way in hell, none. The deficit by the time Donald Trump gets out of office is going to be well north of 50. Who knows how much the Fed is going to have to buy? Remember Jeff Gundlach, he called we need exotic measures. In other words, quantitative easing, that's not exotic enough. No. We need to find the unicorn. That's why people are sick of it. They're sick of having money in their bank accounts and having it essentially be worth nothing. Nothing. 20 years ago, you had $100,000 in the bank. You buy a house for cash. Now what? Well, I got a down payment. I can make I got 20% down. I got 20% down. That's it. This is what we're talking about. This is one of these things. This whole thing is catching fire. They shattered records last week as far as miners signing up. Yesterday alone, so the start of the new week, signups were up 58% from last week. One of the things, it's hard because I'm selling gold, and then I'm telling you, well, if you want to trade some gold to get in, I think you should do it. Why? Because here's the thing I know. I think by this time next year, I'm going to be conservative. I think gold's going to be $4,500. I do. Which is awesome. I think TextIt, right? So $4,500, that's what? Almost a 50% increase. Almost. Not quite. 40%. Pretty good. TextIt, 10-fold, 20-fold percent increase. And again, I don't know, but that's what I'm anticipating. Put it this way. I think you can sell half of it next year, buy 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the amount of gold, and still have plenty of money left over to go on vacation, get a new ride, right? Jason, we're talking about the potential here for, think about if you had bought Bitcoin at 80 cents, how much it would be worth right now. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be Bitcoin, right? It's not going, till 100,000. But this is a double-digit type investment coming, Jason.
TextIt coin can go to 100,000, but that's not reasonable in the short term. This is a network that's being built. Bitcoin had to be built. The mining for Bitcoin used to be, at the beginning, you could have a laptop, hook into the Bitcoin network and mine Bitcoin with your laptop when it was a penny, 10 cents, 50 cents. As the value grew and it became harder for the blocks to be mathematically solved to create blocks for the blockchain, you needed more computing power, more electricity, more fixes on your computers that blow up. I mean, TextIt's computers have to be, I guess, in some sort of oil, right, Joe, so that it stays cool. So you listening to this are on the ground level of a new crypto coin. It's a blockchain, and you get to buy the mining shares. You don't have to have the machines. You don't have to have the electric bills. You're helping build this network, which will continue to just grow and grow and grow. And Joe, Bitcoin came out in 2009, 16 years ago. But it was already making a huge splash just 5 to 10 years in. In 2017, 8 years in, it was starting to catch a national, international attention all over the place. And we go, that's just 8 years. This thing started late 2023. So the very beginnings of the company, which is I don't know if you call it the boring state as far as the pricing and everything, they've got that behind them. It would have been nice if we would have got in at 4 cents. We didn't know to get in at 4 cents. But if Texas in a reasonable amount of time goes to $5,000 a coin, Joe, let's just say several years from now, you got 1,000 coins sitting. Joe and I are both way past 1,000 coins that we mined.
Oh yeah,
it's investment. It's your nest egg. You're going to grow that. You're going to grow that investment, and it can grow very, very quickly. This thing is built to run, and at first you walk. The baby has to crawl, then the baby walks, and then the baby runs. The crawling is kind of over with. We're standing up and walking now. That's where you're buying in. And when it runs, anybody holding this stuff is going to be really happy when it runs, Joe.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't even think we're running or walking. I still think we're crawling. When I got in, I was like just above miner 3,000. Okay, they're already past miner 4,000. On the way to miner 5,000.
Yep.
You're going to be that early in. That is the sweet spot of this. When we start getting to, listen, by the end of summer, it's going to be miner 10,000, miner 15,000, miner 20,000. Listen, it's still going to be great then. But, man, it doesn't get much easier than this. Get signed up. Get your bonus hash. Call us 800-951-0592. Jason and I, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Friday. I wish that's wishful thinking. Here on this Tuesday, gold's up 17. Here we go, 32.56. That $20 gold piece deal. Today's it, man. Come on, get on it here. 1 through 9. 34 and a quarter, 10 or more, 3,400. And then, of course, text it if you want to get in, right? They've got and here's the thing. That's the other thing. How much longer do they do the bonus for 369? I don't know, right? Maybe that's something we can talk to Bobby about on Thursday. But right now, if you buy 3 mining shares, they give you a 4th free. Each share is essentially $1,000. It's $995. So, but you buy 3, you get a 4th. You buy 6, you get 8. If you buy 9, you get 12 shares. And every day, coins get put into your account. Every day. Day after day. Crypto's not like the other stuff. It's 7 days a week. 7 days a week. You get money put into your account, and it's something where, as Bobby says, this is your second chance at Bitcoin. I think it could be. I know this. Bobby knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for a very long time. I think this is going to be an incredible opportunity. Yes, you can trade precious metals for it. You can trade gold. You can trade silver if you want. We always say, hey, 3 $20 gold pieces or 3 ounces of gold get you a 9-pack, right? That's worth, $12,000, right, with all the free stuff that's involved in it. You write a check, pay cash, however you would like to do it. And the sooner you get in, the sooner you reap the benefits. And obviously, as the mine grows, right, the amount of coins you get every day will go down a little bit. I mean, that's just how it works, Jason.
Well, when you get your mining shares, which is hash, the percentage of them, you get a percentage of the mine production. So as more and more people get signed up, your percentage with your hash will shrink, which means you'll be able to mint fewer coins as the miners grow. You can grow your mining shares, your hash, by simply signing people up. But the other thing is, if you just invest in this, you just want to leave that alone and just continue pulling coins, and it will this will take a while, but the amount of coins you produce will shrink as a percentage of the mine. it's going to be softened by the fact that the price is going up. So when you're mining less coins, the price going up kind of just heads that off. So you're going to be producing about the same amount as time goes on. But getting in earlier when there's less miners gets you more coins quicker and gets that thing going. And when the price starts taking off, I mean, it's literally, if it has a 32x rise from the 50-cent price point, which we had, it seems like way, way long time ago, 10 days ago, when you could have got Texas for 50 cents, a 16x rise in price, which they determined was going to hit on 2/22 of next year. It's probably going to hit sooner, but if it just go with their date, that's their goal, that's a 32x rise. $10,000 in Texas coin will be $320,000 on 2/22 of 2022. So you might want to get into
about how much gold you're going to buy then.
I know. How much gold are you going to transfer that into gold then, right? And we can handle that we can handle it.
Right. Get in. Remember, we'll have Bobby Gray, the founder of Texit, on Thursday.